Okay. All right, my friend. So I'm going to start with the initial prayer. So let's start getting comfortable in your chairs, calming your hearts, calming your minds, your thoughts, trying to bring all the positivity around us. Try to light up all the lights we have inside us so then the light spirits can come into our encounter and work with us at this night, trying to bring all the spirits that are in need, bring all the help, bring all the comforting, not only for the spirits, but for those here on this earth that are in need. Let's work and study the Jesus teachings, trying to find the best way on following his steps, on following his teachings, and not only to listen to it, but trying to apply in our lives, trying to bring all his faith into our lives, and also to bring all the good things to ourselves, to those that we are surrounded with, to our neighbors, to our friends, family, and even for the strangers that we don't even know. Because it's with our attitudes that we can show to the world that can be a better place. Thank you for your time. That will be very well worked here. Thank you for your presence here, even that is just online, not physical presence. But God knows where we are in need, and then he'll work with all his workers on this earth or in his spiritual world. We're gonna work together whenever place we need to be worked with. And so be it. All right, so today we're gonna finish chapter 23. Let me just do something here. Okay, we're gonna finish the chapter 23rd that says about the strange moral. And just the subject about the chapter, it says itself, how strange were all these teachings Jesus tried to show us. And since the beginning of these chapters, there were a lot of sayings of Jesus that was super hard to understand and hard to believe that those words were coming out of Jesus' mouth. But actually, it was like nice words, but just misunderstood at the time and misinterpreted at that time. So now that like we have as a base the gospel, we can interpret better and understand better what all their words meant. And just unfortunately for the time, we know that like we understand things in our right time. So at that time, it was not very nice understood like at Jesus' time. So that's why he ended up being killed by his people at that time, because most of his teachings were misunderstood and misinterpreted by other people because they didn't have the intellectual ability to it. They didn't have the love he had in his heart, so they could understand better all these strange moral teachings he tried to share with us. The final subject of this chapter, he says, I have not come to bring peace, but dissension or but a sword. So when you read that, you think, how come Jesus is gonna, he came to this earth and said that like, I don't want a peace, I want fight. But if we're going to read further, and then you got to understand better what he meant when he said that. So on Jesus' affirmatives, he says, do not think that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. I have come to bring division. And I have come to cast fire upon the earth. And what do I desire except that it be lit? Oh my gosh, it be lit. So after all these affirmatives, like I said, like how come Jesus that teach love, that teach charity, how come he said all that? So then here's gonna shows up more explanation about it. Are not such words in flagrant contradiction with his teachings? Jesus would not have contradicted himself. So he never said something and then he came back and said other things. It is solely the form, a bit ambiguous, that does not express his thought precisely. And this fact has given rise to misunderstandings as to their true meaning. So again, a lot of people misunderstood Jesus at the time. That's why in their head, the best way to finish his philosophy, his way of life, his way of seeing life, it was to exterminate him. It was killing him. People couldn't and weren't able at that time to understand and interpret better his thoughts and his teachings. And taken literally, they would tend to transform his wholly peaceful mission into a mission of subversion and discord. So they, at the time, said that Jesus came actually to cause the discord between people and not the union between people. So when it says sword, division, and fire, what Jesus didn't want mean was disagreement and violence fed by Christ. He never wanted to feed any kind of violence in this world. But what actually meant was the evil that would come from humans and not from him. So he never caused the bad or the violence in this world. He always tried to open people's mind, people's heart to feed their souls with a better thinking, with a better future, with feeding their soul with hope, with faith. That's all what he wanted at that time. But people interpret that when he came bringing all this new thinking, that actually he wanted to put everyone against the government at that time, against to people in power at the time. Because, and it's funny to say that like it's so old, but it's so new, the same situation. It's old because at that time, what the most matter was power, money, and tradition, which right now we can see a lot of that, which influences the world. Like we see the news every day. We see what's going on in the world right now with this protest and everything. So it's so old and so new at the same time. But actually, what Jesus wanted us to wake up and see that if you want to change everything, if you want a better world, we have to start with ourselves. Everything starts with we changing ourselves and not the world, because the world never gonna be changed if it doesn't start with ourselves. So we have to understand that the sword here is to fight against your own feelings. So you first have your own battle. After you finish your own battle with yourself, then you go outside, you go out there and try to fight for everyone's rights, including yours. But first you have to finish your own battle, because nothing helps. For example, I'm gonna give for the protest. If you go out there and protest for people's right, But if inside actually you have a lot of conflicts with yourself and you don't really know what you think, what you want to fight for, what you think is right or wrong. After you find all that, then you can go out there and win the out there battle. So the first battle is with yourself. That's what Jesus meant when like he didn't want to bring peace, because we understand that his peace is different from the human peace. His peace was like, I want to be in peace with myself. But being a human being, we all know we are full of defects and you still have to evolve a lot. So for us, technically, no, literally talking, our peace means material peace, because human beings always think that you're just in peace if you have save money, if you have health, if you're happy every day. This is being peace, but it's not the same peace that Jesus came here and said that you have to fight for. For you to have peace, the first thing you have to do is be in peace with yourself. Then you can conquer the world, and then eventually material things can complement you. But the main thing for you to be happy, you have a heart full of hope and faith, you have to conquer the peace inside your own self. On Christ's doctrine, he condemned all the violence. Also, the base for his doctrine is charity, fraternity, and love one another. On Jesus' teachings, he also says, all men are brothers, and God is supremely merciful. Love your neighbor. Love your enemies. And do good to those who persecute you. How hard it is to do all that, with all these bad things going on in the world. But one day will be able to do all that, because we will be able to find ourselves in the world. Once you find yourself in the world, it will be easier for you to see the good on people, to see the good on people that consider bad people, because you always can see through what is that material. You can see what is inside of that people. So the resistance to a new idea, it was basically because, like I mentioned before, that time people, and like this time also, but like on that time, I think people need like some kind of a break of like that power they have abusively, and like no one who did nothing. Like now we can go there and like protest, even though sometimes like the protest doesn't go the right way, but right now we have more freedom in a certain way, so then you can fight for everyone's rights. But on that time, the power people thought that his idea was more like a resistance to it was more like against their own idea, and then the Christ, when he came, he wanted to put everybody against the power. So every new idea encounters strong opposition, and there is not one that has not been implemented without a struggle. Resistance in such cases is always in proportion to the importance of the results foreseen. For the greater idea, the more numerous the interests it will ruffle. And the resistance towards Christianism, it was inevitable. So the inferiority of human nature could not be transformed all of a sudden. And as we know, we are still in transformation. We, at this world called Earth, we are always going to be transforming ourselves. And for sure, one day in another incarnation, we'll be very evolved, that you'll be already transformed. But right now, while we are here, we are in a process of transformation. So it takes time. It's not that's gonna happen like even in the next life. We are still learning everything, because once you came as human beings, we still are in a school called life. I'll say that. Also, Christianity had to pass through this long and cruel trial in order to show all its strength. So if that, like, till nowadays, how many fights we have because of religion? And like, he didn't come here to tell that like you have to fight, to be bloody, you know, to defend his ideas. That's wrong. This is not being a good Christian. You have to do your thing to be a good person, but doesn't mean you have to go out there and kill people just because that people doesn't think and doesn't believe in Jesus. You know, you have to show through your attitudes and all, and not through your acts of, like, which is worse, violent acts. So what did I do? What did I do? Sorry. So Christ's thought was, these words of Jesus must therefore be understood as referring to the rage that his doctrine would provoke. You will bring bloody battles using my name as a pretext. Brothers will unsheath their swords against one another, and division will reign in the midst of the same family. Here, like, because you believe on his doctrine, and because you didn't believe, that caused a lot of battles, even between brothers and sisters, between family. How many like books we've read that they have a lot of conflicts because some of the people in the family believed on his teachings, and some other people thought that was absurd. So the meaning for it, I have come to cast fire upon the earth, is clean it of error and prejudice, just as fire is put to a field in order to destroy the weeds, so that purification might be quicker. And when the field has been prepared, I will send you the Counselor, the Spirit of Truth, who will establish all things. That is given to understand the true meaning of my words. So Spiritism came with a lot of explanation of all his teachings, because it was given to us because we are prepared to receive more information and more interpretation, a better interpretation of all his teachings. So then you can open up more our minds, open up our eyes, our hearts, and be open for all the change and transformation that the word is going through. And then the word always gonna be through, because we always in transformation. And the Spiritism has come at the right time to fulfill the promises of Christ. And time will come, and human beings will realize where their true interests lie regarding this word and the other. All will then shelter themselves beneath the same banner, the banner of charity. And all things will be reestablished on the earth in accordance with the truth and principles that Christ had taught. So I want to read some like reflections I did here too. So like I mentioned before, like the interior balance, that's what Jesus is defending on this chapter. He wants us to be balanced inside, so we'll be able to fight the outside battles. Otherwise, if you're not in balance, you won't be able to accept things that happen, because most of the exterior things, the things that happen outside, the material things that happen, the things that happen in the world, we cannot control. So if you cannot control that, and if you cannot control yourself, it's when we get lost, and then it's when we lose hope, when we lose faith. So once you have your interior balance is when you'll be able to go there and fight and be better, understand better what happened with all the situation. Uh, let's put ourselves in this example with everything that is being happening with COVID, with this protest now. Can you imagine if you like we are completely lost in our souls, in our hearts? Can you imagine how bad could be our situation and how bad it is a lot of people's situation that you hear about depression, about suicide? Probably these people were not balanced themselves. They have like I don't know, a tornado inside of themselves, and then they won't be able to understand themselves. And like if they cannot understand themselves, to understand all this world situation is much harder. So then some people end up like causing bad for themselves and sometimes causing bad for other people. What else? Just one second. Oh, and when I was watching a lecture to give this one here, it was from Arthur Valadares, and then he even mentions two things. Kardec says in chapter 8 of the Gospel that none of the Christ's words is absurd. So everything that he's saying on this chapter about strange moral, it's not that like it doesn't make sense. It actually makes sense, but like we are not able and not prepared to understand in the olds, but right now we can understand and comprehend better. And also Emmanuel says, if any of the Christ's words is meaningful, the problem is not on the teaching itself, but it's on our limitation of comprehension of it, and also our own interpretation. And he mentions also there's three things that you can exercise with ourselves to see if you are prepared for the world. The first one is as the battle starts when we can see in ourselves what I am, what I know, who I am, and who don't I want to be anymore. So once you can answer these three questions and you can work on these three questions, you are already exercising your transformation. You're already exercising your better be. So then you can go out there in this world and fight for better meaning for your soul. And also before this awakening, we always blamed the bad on people and not on ourselves. So it's easy to us when we are lost in our souls to always blame somebody else, to always put the blame on people around us or on a system, on a government, on politics. But if we are not doing our doing things right, how can you blame on the system or on the politics or the government? You start your being a better person, a better citizen when you start doing the right things. So we start always with us. And faith is our best protection. Faith is trust, and it's possible only when we can love and live and be charitable. So that all was considerations that Arthur Valadares mentioned on his lecture, and then I thought that was very important to mention here, because once you have faith, you have trust, and once you have trust, everything's possible. And then if it's possible, you can love and live, and then you can practice the charity, and then you're gonna fulfill your heart, and then you're gonna start practicing being a human, a right human being. And with that, it's a cycle. So once you do that, it affects everyone that is around you, and then affects everyone that is around them. And then it goes like a cycle, and then everybody's connected and ready to do the good in the world. Of course, it all takes time, but I think we are seeing a lot of transformation in the world, and I think this final subject of these strange morals actually it was a very good subject in my head, in my mind, out of everything that is going on right now. Like, everybody's looking for change, but the question is everybody ready for their own change? That's what I think that is something that really got into my mind. And yeah, I think that's all the considerations I wanted to say about this chapter. Everyone clear?
Yes.
All right. So we're gonna do the final prayer that we discussed. That's what we're gonna do?
Yep.
Okay. So let's finish with the final prayer, and then we go from there. All right, my friends, they're here. My virtual friends, my spiritual friends. Thank you for this reflection, worlds. And let's put all this energy that was brought to us today to all these protesters. The protesters, they are there to fight from their rights, but also, most importantly, from those that are taking advantage of the situation. That your light reach their hearts and make them think better, to make out of the situation the best they can and not taking advantage out of it. Let's put our vibration, the good vibration, for the world right now. Everyone in need, everyone that is going through a bad health situation with the COVID, and for the families, and also for everyone in this world, to give us patience, to give us faith, to give us love, and put in our hearts that this situation that is going on in the world is just passenger. And then everyone that is with the whole open hearts, that they will learn something and take the best knowledge out of it. Thank you for your support, your spiritual support. Thank you for your teachings, because if it wasn't for it, we probably lost in our souls. And so be it.